Morning, children. We are reading the first lesson of Vistas, the third level. Children, third level symbolizes man's yearning to delve deeper into the world of imagination as an escape from the world of harsh realities. It stands for his quest for the fabulous ordinariness of a bygone age that was free from the modern razzle dazzle sophistication and material comforts, but exuded peace and tranquility. So, yesterday, children, we read Charlie gives evidence of the fact that he remembers all about that day, so nobody can doubt him. He says further, I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level, where you take trains like the 20th century. Then I walked down another flight to the second level, where the suburban trains leave from. So, children, Charlie says that he turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level where you take trains like the 20th century. So he says that he thought that he was moving on the right way. So here he says that where the suburban trains leave from ducked into arched doorway heading for the subway. So he took another flight on the second level he has reached, and he says, and then he saw the suburban trains that were moving in those times, that is 20th century. And then further he went into an arched doorway heading for the subway and got lost. So he says that's easy to do. I have always been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times. But he says I am always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. So he has always found new ways of coming out from the Grand Central. Once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came out in the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel. Another time I came up in an office building on the 46th Street, 3 blocks away. So he says that as many times before, he got lost that day also, and he thought that he would be today exploring a new way towards his home. Further, he continues, sometimes I think Grand Central Station is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircase like roots. There is probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square and maybe another to Central Park. And maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into. Here he says that many people must have chosen this way to go here and there, and they would have also reached to different places. He says that continuously Grand Central Station is growing. As it is increasing in floors, similarly it is increasing in levels. So it might have been possible that for many people this has turned into an exit, the way of escape. Children, he says that he is amazed to know that how could his psychiatrist friend know about the idea of escape, because he had never discussed about this thing that Grand Central Station could be an exit or a way of escape for everyone. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that I was wrong. But I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footsteps, and I didn't pass a soul. He was all alone. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead that means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the third level at the Grand Central Station. For just a moment, I thought I was back on the second level, but I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking, and the man in the booth wore a green eye shade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why. They were open flame gas lights. So, children, for a moment he thought that he was again on the second level. But when he saw the difference between the second level and the third level, he understood that he was on a level where nobody had ever been. There were brass spittoons on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. Children, glint means a sudden flash of light. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch, and frowned, became agitated. He wore a derby hat, a black four-button suit with tiny lapels. Lapels are, children, a front part of the coat, front folded back. And he had a big black handlebar mustache. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. I never saw so many beards, sideburns, and fancy mustaches in my life. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high buttoned shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive, a very small Currier and Eves locomotive with a funnel shaped stack, and then I knew. So he felt that he was in 1890 something because the people wore a different dress, a dress like people used to wear in 1890 something, and he could see the locomotive that was placed there on the station that was also running during those times only. So the fashion, the clothes, and the locomotives, and the brass spittoon that was lying there, the lights, flickering lights that were there, all that suggested that he was on the third level. To make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers at his feet. It was The World, and The World hasn't been published for years. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. I have found that front page since in the public library files, and it was printed June 11, 1894. So a similar kind of newspaper he has seen in the public library also, and confirms the date June 11, 1894. I turned towards the ticket windows, knowing that here on the third level at the Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go in the year 1894. And I wanted two tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. So, Galesburg, Illinois is a utopian thought here, children, an imaginary place for him to visit. He must have never seen that clearly, but he wants to visit that place because he has heard from the grandfathers, from the forefathers that they used to live there in a very happy state. Was in 1890 something, he wanted to take his wife to a beautiful place, Galesburg, Illinois, and he thought of buying tickets for himself and his wife. Galesburg, Illinois, children, as I have told, it's a utopian thought. Have you ever been there? He says. It's a wonderful town still, with big old frames houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof the streets. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long, and people sat out on their lawns, the men smoking cigars and talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans with the fireflies all around, in a peaceful world. To be back there with the First World War still 20 years off and World War II over 40 years in the future. I wanted 2 tickets for that. So according to him, the world wars has have given us insecurity, the tension, we have lost our carefree environment. And so he says that he wanted to go before that. In 1914, we know that the World War began. So he said 1894, 20 years before that, he wanted to go in past. Now you must have seen Doraemon taking Nobita on a time machine. So here the same kind of spirit is of our Charlie who wanted to go in past. Okay, past 20 years and 40 years before the First and the Second World War. So he wanted to buy tickets, and then when he was standing there, see what happens. The clerk figured the fare. He glanced at my fancy headband, but he figured the fare. And I had enough for 2 coach tickets, one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. He nodded at the bills. Bills means the notes that he was having, the money that he was having in hand. That aren't money, mister, he said. And if you are trying to skin me, you won't get very far. So the clerk at the counter said that the money that Charlie wanted to give for the tickets was not the actual money that they were using. And he warned Charlie that if he is trying to cheat him, then he will be given punishment for that. And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him. Of course, the money was old style bills, the money that was used in the old times, half again as big as the money we use nowadays. The size of the notes he is talking about, and different looking. I turned away and got out fast. There is nothing nice about jail even in 1894. So till here we are going to do, children.